Good morning, everyone. Jonathan here, coming to you live from sunny Oakland, California, and I'm so excited that today I'm going to be joined by my dear friend Kim Doyle, who is an incredible creator and visionary entrepreneur. She is residing in the mountains of Colorado, and she's also going to be joining us for the Vision Quest retreat happening in Guatemala in January. And yeah, today she's going to be sharing a little bit about her journey as an entrepreneur and a community creator. And yeah, she's been a big part of building a conscious community in Colorado, and I want to have her share a little bit about the strategies that she's used, because as many of as many of my friends who are entrepreneurs and community creators, building community is one of the most important tools and strategies that we can use to build an idea, to get an idea into the world. And in an age where they say that content is king and context is queen, we need to be able to raise awareness around what it is that we are bringing to the world. And she is truly a master manifesting muse, and she's going to be sharing some of her story about how she's been able to activate people to really utilize mindfulness strategies, conscious cultivation, and different techniques in yoga, and self-care practices to support people who are she has a few different businesses. One is working with people who are experiencing who have gotten out of hospitals and are now on their path to becoming more fully integrated therapeutic patients, but applying yoga to their lives and mindfulness practices to help them get back into the world. And then also she's working with entrepreneurs and leaders to help them to achieve peak performance. And so Kim is going to join us right now. I'm going to bring her in and introduce. And here we go. 3, 2, 1. Boom. What's up, Kim?
Hey, hey.
How's it going?
Good, how are you?
Good. I think I can hear a little bit of feedback. So if you had headphones or something, or we can find a way to not have the sound go through your speakers.
Oh, okay. How's it sound right now?
Perfect.
Okay, great.
Except for the feedback that I'm getting of my own voice.
Oh, I have my phone on. If I turn the
Do you
volume,
have headphones by any chance?
I gave you my headphones at the last retreat and never got them back.
Are you for real?
Yeah.
When was that? That was like February?
I know. I haven't gotten new ones. I'm actually 50% deaf, and so even with headphones, it's like
Is that like the most random manifestation?
yeah, that's pretty random. But it makes perfect sense.
I do actually remember. I do remember I remember that, but I didn't realize that they were your headphones, because I remember someone gave me headphones and I had no idea who they were.
And I kind of forgot about them till later, and I was like, where did those go?
It's so hilarious.
Yeah.
Okay, so what we're gonna do then is we're gonna turn down the mic here, and if you can turn down your sound, because basically I'm getting the repeat of my voice through your audio.
Right. Is that better?
And then I'm gonna get you a new pair of headphones when we meet up in Guatemala in January.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I turned it down. If you can hear me,
Perfect.
we're good. And
Yeah.
I'll do my best to read lips. I'm kind of a lip reader anyways.
Cool. So yeah, so how are you doing, Kim?
I'm doing pretty good, you know? I mean, good is the best that I could be right now. You know what I mean? I love
Nice.
Scorpio season, and I think it's a time for us all to kind of go a little bit into our shadows. So, um, considering the depths that I've allowed myself to go, I'm doing really good. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, you're helping a lot of people explore the depths of of their themselves as leaders and as just like creators, and you call yourself a manifestation muse, and I'm curious if you can share a little bit as to how do you define a manifestation muse, and what are you manifesting right now in your life and in your business?
Yeah. So I consider myself a manifestation muse because somehow I've manifested like everything that I've ever wanted in my life. And it's kind of one of those like blessing and a curse things, where I have to be really
Mm,
careful what I wish for. And so I've kind of refined my process of manifestation and gotten it down to a little bit of like a, we'll call it like a self science, because I know what works for me. And so what I love to do is guide people through the process that I use and leave it really open ended for people, because it's just a process. They're the ones that are manifesting their dreams, they're the ones that are writing down their visions. I'm just kind of providing the framework. And lately, it's just been super magical to see how many people are also able to manifest everything they've ever wanted, like to the T, you know? And there was a time where I thought it was
nice.
like a special skill that I had, and then I realized it was a skill that anyone could be taught.
Nice. So let's decode that a little bit. Like, what do you think are some of the components that go into getting to that level of creation? Because I know that feeling. I've been in that point where it's like I'm in full flow, everything's in alignment, all the pieces are falling into place. And then I've also been fully out of alignment where everything feels fucked, and it's like, what is happening? Nothing's working out. And so yeah, what are some of the components that you see going into this?
So I recently like wrote down my process because I've been
Yeah.
guiding people through it, but only through a part of it. And then I started to really think about like, well, what am I doing to even set the space for them or for myself? And like, especially
Nice.
with Scorpio season and things can get kind of dark. And like, if you're going through the shadows, how do you manifest the dreams? And, the first step for me is always setting the space. And I think this is why
Mm,
retreats are really powerful because the space is already set. It's like a sacred space. And that's like the first thing that I do. So if I'm manifesting for myself, it's like I clean my house, I sweep my entryway. It's a little witchy to like sweep your entryway and like make some space for whatever's coming in, but that's something that I do for myself and that for my clients. They always walk into my
yeah.
space and it's like set up, and
Beautiful. Well, and I love that too because I mean, even just creating a sacred container for your work, for creating, whenever I'm getting ready to have a productive day, I always like make my bed and I do, the small things that, I light a candle and, like sage the space or, whatever it takes to make you feel like you're creating a sacred container and really just being intentional with what you're about to do.
totally. And that's kind of what I
Yeah.
came up with, for the process. And you said intention. And I've kind of come up with this acronym IDEA, IDEA. And it's moving
Nice.
from intention into dreaming into enactment and then activation. And so
Nice.
that's the process that I do, and
Idea.
that's the process I take people through.
Very cool. Intention.
Dreaming,
What was the second? Dream.
yep. And then enactment.
Enactment. What is that?
So that's what
The
like I call
action.
like pre-celebration. So I had an amazing experience with a
Nice.
client where we wrote intentions and then we jumped up and down and we screamed and we hooted and we hollered and we like pretended like everything came true. And about 8 months later, she came up to me at a party like screaming in my face. And I was like, what is happening? She's like, it all happened, everything. And that's the activation.
Right, right. Beautiful. And I love that. I mean, just like that is the definition of faith, right? Is like evidence of the unseen. It's like it's that having faith in what is to come and actually pre-programming your body neurologically even to have that experience before it happens. And most people are remembering what happened in the past and bringing that past experience into the present moment, reenacting
Yes.
the past. But the question here is, how can you reenact? How can you enact the future?
Yeah. We're pre-enacting.
Pre-enacting. Nice. Love that. Very cool. Yeah, and I feel like that's also what we're going to be doing at the Vision Quest retreat is, coming together and saying, okay, it's 2020, it's a new year. What is your vision? And let's go through all of these processes together and be intentional with how we are envisioning our future, and also what are the practices that we want to integrate into our daily life in order to keep us on track. Because if, it's easy for someone to write down a list of goals, but then they go, right back into their old programming and continue to condition themselves subconsciously to a previous timeline. And so I'm curious, you work with, you have a number of different businesses. You build these communities, you host ecstatic dance events, you bring together hundreds of people on is it a weekly basis or a monthly basis?
The event that we've been putting on is monthly full moon event. I do new
Okay,
moon,
cool.
more
Nice.
personal. This is like the manifestation and the sound healing, but like the big
Yeah.
party is monthly when the weather's good here in Colorado.
Okay, nice. And so, you're an excellent community builder, but then you also work with people who are experiencing anxiety and depression, and you mentioned that that's like one of your most consistent things that you've been doing over the years is working with these people. And I'm curious, like, because I think that everyone, at least I can only speak for myself, but I've experienced anxiety and depression, and having these types of mindful practices and wellness practices are key to helping me to like stay in flow. And I'm curious, like, what are the things that you do, that you work with clients, that what works best to keep people in that mental capacity, to be able to then enact their future?
Yeah. It's interesting because I work with two populations, and one is through this outpatient mental health facility, and these are people who are often in like an acute phase of healing in their life. And then the other
Mm.
population I work with is like the conscious community in Denver. And it's interesting because
Nice.
you'd think that the approach would be maybe different for people that are in different situations, but I'm finding that it's the
Right.
same across the board. And
Totally.
yeah, I love the program that I work with at the mental health facility because it's based on 6 pillars of sunshine,
Okay.
sleep, supplementation, social interaction, and exercise. And I think those are the exact same
Oh,
things that the conscious community maybe is already doing some
yes.
of those things. But how can I share what I've
Right.
learned with people who maybe haven't learned the community piece too?
Right, right, right. I love that. It's so simple, and I think that we forget sometimes, like those basic things that our bodies need in order um, to circulate energy.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it has to do with circulating energy, and we oftentimes find that, in our breathwork practice, we find it in our yoga practice, our physical exercise. The sun stimulates the blood. You get your vitamin D, yeah, your supplements. It's like getting your nutritional value, and then ultimately, hopefully, you get to that deeper state where you can even get into the subtle energy bodies and start to learn about, circulating energy even through consciousness alone. And
Hmm.
that's one of the things I'm really passionate about, is like actually expanding my own practice in order to learn my body is more and more, and continue to circulate energy, because when you can circulate energy, you have more energy to then create and to manifest.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just reading about kind of the difference between laziness and kind of being in the gap of pure potentiality, and how they can maybe even be seen from the outside as the same thing. I'm a little bit in the gap in my life right
Mm,
now from what I've been doing and where I want to go, and um, it feels like what am I doing? Because I've been meditating a lot. I've been like this whole like
mm.
falling into the fall and just laying on the floor and just being in the depths and like, but the difference between laziness and pure potentiality is laziness is draining. You feel tired. But when you're actually meditating, you
Wow.
feel energized. And they both might look like doing nothing.
Whoa. Wow. What a shift.
Yeah.
What a shift.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I can literally feel that right now in this moment, because I'm still waking up from a really long, powerful weekend, and my body feels a little bit tired, and at the same time, just hearing you say that causes me to shift from like, am I meditating right now, or am I being lazy right now?
Right.
That's powerful.
And this is why I
Yeah,
love teaching
that's huge.
restorative yoga. And that's what I mostly teach at the mental health
Mm,
facility. Well, I mean, just across the board. I was very involved in yoga asana and physical practice for a long time. And then I finally got to this
yeah.
place where I realized that I actually get more energy when I allow myself to relax than when I'm always pushing.
Mm,
And I think a lot of people can learn from that.
right.
Sometimes there's more in the not doing.
Right, right. And maybe it's also like more in the not forcing, but like harnessing and allowing
Yeah,
that energy, right? Because
receiving it, right?
that vital life force energy is always moving through us. And if we're not moving, if we're sedentary, then the energy is being blocked. It's being resisted, right? But if we can allow for that energy to move, then you're again increasing circulation, and it's like the law of circulation. It's like the more that you give, the more you receive. The more life you give, the more you receive. The more love you give, the more love you receive. And yeah, so this is really interesting though. So this shifting from laziness and lethargy to just like an active intention or an active enactment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And so what are you how are you helping people manifest right now? Because I know like you are a manifestation muse. I've been around you. You came to the Vision Quest retreat this last year, and you have an amazing, incredible energy. Like you just have this vitality of about you. And I'm curious, like, what are the practices that you do on a daily basis that kind of like help you to keep your energy vital and alive and active?
Yeah. I mean, one is obviously yoga is a big part, but I think it's any embodiment practice. I shifted a little bit out of yoga after 7 years and more into dance, and now it's kind of combination of the two. But I think anything to get you in your body, is one of them.
Yeah.
And sometimes people don't even know how to do that themselves, and that's where like booking a massage is can be really helpful.
Nice.
So any embodiment practice, I would say, is like the number one. I think nutrition is key. I dabble with no sugar, no caffeine, no alcohol. And I'm not super
Good.
strict, if I'm at a
Nice.
birthday party or whatever.
Challenging.
Pardon me?
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's a challenging one for me. Caffeine and sugar.
I mean, it was life changing for me when I really cut it out because I was able to really feel my feelings and not the feelings of a substance.
Right. Right.
So
Yeah,
I know
so
that's a
often
hard
it's
one.
like life is just controlled by these little bursts of sugar, and yeah, yeah.
Totally. And I felt so clear when I was clear. I mean, it makes perfect sense, you know. Another practice that's really important to me is connecting with water, whether it's lakes,
Mm,
rivers. I've pretty much only drank spring water for the past 6 or 7 years. I don't drink any tap water. And also taking baths. I use baths as a spiritual
nice.
practice.
Beautiful. Love that. And do you find that these practices like are you is this keeping you in flow, and is there anything that you like, how would you define flow state? Because I feel like when you're in alignment and everything's happening, I would also describe that as like being in flow, and I'm curious if you have any practices that help to keep you in flow.
Yeah, I think that the flow state is one of those things that can feel a little bit elusive. Sometimes it feels like it when it's here, and when it's not, it's not. So I think the biggest question is like, how do
Mm,
you create a flow state? And so interesting that I
yeah.
said embodiment and water, because when you're
Mm,
dancing, you're actually flowing. And like, what does water do? It
right.
flows. And even when I raced mountain bikes, it was on a flow trail. It was actually called a flow trail, jump trail. And so I
Right.
think the way to
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
like
yeah.
hack into the flow state is to
Beautiful. I love that. Connect with things that flow. Okay, so let's list off a couple. I mean, obviously water, the ocean for me, surfing, dancing, ecstatic dance. You host ecstatic dance events. What other things flow?
Hmm. I think sometimes conversations can flow. Sometimes if I'm feeling
Totally.
stuck, I'll call someone and we'll get into a good flow, and then the energy starts to come and it starts to go. And it's like, I gotta go. I've got stuff to do, you know?
Nice. I
I'm trying to
love
think of
that.
what
Yeah,
else
yeah, yeah.
flows. I think singing, music, some people that's their flow, you know?
Yeah,
Um,
definitely. I really love that though. It's just like a flow consciousness, and tuning in to, yeah, where is there currently flow happening in your life? And I think it's also important to acknowledge that, you know, there is flow happening in social media, and that like I think a lot of times it's almost like this artificial flow where we get caught into social media and we get lost in there, and then it takes our attention, and I think it's just important to become aware of that, that it's like there's good flow and there's like not so good flow potentially,
that's
you know.
true. I never really thought about that, but you really
Same
can
with
get
like,
stuck in like the flow of scrolling or
yeah,
something. And it might be satisfying on some
yeah,
level.
totally. And like and alcohol or like smoking or like whatever, it's like, it's like there's these certain things that again, it's circulation, this movement of energy that causes us to go from lazy and lethargy to movement, and which feels like productivity, which feels like progression. And so yeah, it's an interesting correlation there. But yeah,
Yeah.
and I also want to talk about community building, because you're an excellent community builder and you're an entrepreneur. You also have a company that you make these elixirs, and I'm sure we'll be making some elixirs at the Vision Quest retreat. And I'm curious, like what have been some of the over the years, like how long have you been building this community? What's that journey been like? And you've helped to kind of build the conscious community out there, or at least foster, the cultivation of that community. And I'm curious, like, what has been some of the things that you've done to show up for the community that has worked in helping you build an audience out there in Colorado?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the number one most important thing that we can do for each other is to be your authentic self. You know, I
Nice.
I
Yeah.
dress how I dress. I kind of don't censor myself at all. I show up fully as much as I can everywhere I go. And that's something that I've gotten a lot of feedback from the community on is just like when you walk in a room, dress the way you're dressed, like something shifts. And I've kind of seen it happen with
Wow.
other people
Nice.
where whatever crazy headpiece I have on, then like maybe the next time